It's time to take some responsibility for your life. Hello and welcome to the Unlock podcast with me, Ricky Lock. The podcast is part of my adventure to unlock and understand how to be the best version of ourselves and live a truly successful and extraordinary life. I'm talking to experts from around the world who've seen it, been there, they've done it, and they've got the t-shirt, and even my own personal studies and stories. I'm going to help you unlock how to be the best version of yourself and live an extraordinary life. Now, welcome to the first episode of 2022. Happy New Year to you and all of your loved ones. It is that time of the year where most of us sit down and we set all of our goals and our dreams and ambitions of what we want to achieve this year. Now, I'm going to share a secret with you that will help you achieve everything you desire for 2022 and beyond. Now, before I share that little secret with you, a lot of this learnings and lessons is based on my personal studies into the Success Principles by Jack Canfield. It's a fantastic book. I'm going to share just some of the lessons that I've been learning from the books throughout this year. So throughout this year, I'll be sharing more lessons from that book. You'll just see the episode is called a title with then the Success Principles. So look out this year. I'll be sharing lots of different chapters and lessons from that book. But the first thing I want to show you is that wonderful secret that will help you achieve everything you desire this year. And the secret is to take 100% responsibility for your life. So here's a question. What is the difference between successful and non-successful people? It is how they respond to events and opportunities. That is it. Because life is 10% what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. So picture this. I'm sure that you have probably said this in your own mind, or you might know someone, a business partner, a family, a friend that may have even said this. Oh, I could have done that if maybe the economy wasn't as bad as it was. I could have been more motivated if it wasn't raining. It's been terrible weather today and I just couldn't be bothered to do something. Oh yeah, I could have lost more weight this week, but I was just too tired and I just could not be bothered. Or I could have earned more money, but the market's not great at the minute. Right? I have been there. And if you go back to a few episodes ago, you'll hear some stories about how last year I blamed COVID for obviously crushing my dreams and ambitions, right? But here it is to take 100% responsibility for your life. It is time to stop blaming and complaining, but to start taking responsibility for yourself. Let me introduce E plus R equals O. Now, fans of the podcast, from listening to the sumo guy, Paul McGee's episode, Shut Up, Move On, you will recognize that wonderful formula, E plus R equals O. But stick with me because I'm going to explore and expand on this. So E plus R equals O stands for the event plus your response equals the outcome. Now, Paul actually talks about this in his book, that he heard this from listening to some Jack Canfield tapes, I think when he was starting out in his journey. And Jack Canfield actually learned this from a doctor called Dr. Robert Resnick. And as it says, it's basically whatever the event is plus your response equals the outcome. So I have certainly done this and used this as a blaming tool in 2020. I left my full-time job, as you know, wanting to go out and be a full-time professional magician and a speaker. The event was lockdown. My response was moaning, pissed off, almost depressed, annoyed. And what was the outcome? Lack of work, lack of motivation, and lack of money in my bank, right? Now, interestingly enough, throughout the year, once I finally then kind of adapted and learnt from this, what did I do? I kind of pivoted, or pivot, as we know from Friends episode. I eventually went into online shows, and what was that outcome? I changed it. The event was still there, the lockdown, but my response tweaked and changed, and I decided to look at things in a different light and look at the opportunities, and therefore the outcome was, yes, finally money in my bank, and I felt a lot more motivated and more confident in life. Now, I know what you're thinking, right? So if it's that simple, E plus R equals O, so if you choose the right response and you get the outcome, if it's that simple, if taking just responsibility for your own life was easy, then everybody would be doing it. So why aren't they doing it? Well, it's because it's a lot easier to complain about things and it's uncomfortable trying new things. Now, there's three things here I'm going to get to think about here with the E plus R equals O. R, the three R's, or the responses that you have any control over in your life, is your thoughts, the visual images that you create in your head, or as some people say, a great friend of mine, Michelle Lloyd, talks about the stories that we write or the stories that we tell ourselves. And the third thing is your behavior. So just to recap, the three responses there is your thoughts, your visual images, or the stories that you create in your own head, and your behavior. That is all you have any control over. So like for me, in that example of the COVID lockdown, I had no control over that lockdown. That's the event. And the response, I can choose what thoughts I want to think, the story I want to tell myself. If I tell myself that I'm a failure, I'm not going to be able to get any work because it's lockdown. Therefore, my outcome is going to be a terrible outcome. And obviously, my behavior was reflected in that. So remember, your thoughts, your visual images, the stories that you tell yourself, and your behavior is the only three things that you can actually control. Now, I'm sure that you have heard of the definition of madness, right? The definition of madness is doing the same things over and over and expecting different results. So if you want to achieve something this year, you have to take 100% responsibility for your life. Making excuses or complaining about things, I could have earned more money, or if COVID wasn't here, or if there wasn't restrictions in life, then I would have earned more. Well, that's just an excuse. And making an excuse is basically the art. It's a response to an event. So it's time to take some responsibility. So remember, the difference between successful and non-successful people is how they respond to events and opportunities. So if we want to achieve all of our dreams and our ambitions and our goals this year, we have to stop complaining and making excuses. Now, as Jack talks about this in the book, it's a fantastic thing and a bit of an eye-opener. Complaining, in order to complain, you have to know that there is something better available that you would prefer. But the reason people complain is because they aren't willing to take the action to create. I know quite a few of my probably friends from years and years ago who complained about their job every single day. They complain at work and then they come home, they complain to their partners, and that's all they do. But they don't actually take any action to do anything about it. They make an excuse. Their response is that, oh, it's been a really crap day. Oh, geez, I can't be, it's just not great. I'm not having a good time. Or the boss was doing this today. Well, do something about it. If you're not happy about it, then do something about it. But that's the really important thing is in order to complain, you have to know there's something better, but it's just that people won't do anything about it. So, for example, I could say to you that I was going to make a better podcast episode than this, but you know what? I just got tired and I couldn't be bothered, really. Now, you wouldn't really accept that or be happy with that, right? Because you tuned in to listen to this episode, and that can be quite frustrating, right? Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm making the effort here, the response to make something great, but I want to share with you the exercise that is at the back of the book, which I think will really help you out this year to achieve all those dreams by taking that responsibility. All right, so here's a little exercise that's taken from the Success Principles book, and it's all about your complaints and how you can change them into actions. So whatever you might be dissatisfied with right now, you might have a complaint in life, you've not got enough money, you've not got enough clients in your business, or you're not achieving any of your dreams or ambitions, whatever it might be, write it down. So let's say, for example, you are not earning enough money this month in your business, right? So that's your complaint. Oh, I wish I was earning more money, right? And just complain about it. So instead, what you do, you change the complaint to, I'd prefer to be making more money, but instead I complain about how less I'm earning. Okay? Then the next thing is you change it to an action. So for example, instead of complaining, I could maybe cold call a few clients to get some work. Or instead of complaining, I could maybe contact someone in my network to see if I can provide any work for them. All right? So you can start to see now, just by a simple change of language, by your response, what your thoughts might be, you change it. So instead of complaining, I could do. All right. So just to recap that. So anytime you next have maybe a complaint or maybe an excuse why you didn't hit your goal or why you're not earning enough money or whatever it might be, write down the complaint, whatever it is, and then change it to, instead of complaining, I could do. All right. So for example, this is a real thing for me. I want to be a TEDx talker this year. That's my big goal. Now, if I'm not getting enough speaking opportunities, I could piss and moan about that and make an excuse. Or I could say, instead of complaining that I'm not getting enough work, I could contact some speaker bureaus. I could contact some speaker friends to say, hey, can you help me get some more work? What can I do? And this is the difference between what successful people do and non-successful people do. Remember that the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. But if you want to create the life and success that you long for, whatever your dreams and ambitions are, then you need to give up all of your excuses, because excuses is a response to the event. Remember, the only 3 responses that you have any control over in your life is your thoughts, the visual images or the stories that you tell yourself, and your behavior. Whatever the event is, let's say we go into another lockdown, right? Now, you can sit there and your response could be pissed off, moan, or you can do something about it. Then that would be your outcome. So there we go. Remember, it's time to take some responsibility for your life. If you want to have a successful and wonderful life this year, whether it's in work, your career, your business, or even in your personal fitness goals, whatever it might be, take some responsibility. There we go. Thank you for listening to this episode. This was just one part of the Success Principles series that I'm going to carry out at some point throughout this year. So stay tuned and look out for the episodes that are titled at the back end of the title of the Success Principles by Jack Canfield. As always, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, if it's resonated with you, then share this on social media, share it with your friends, leave a review. You can now leave a review on Spotify. So if you listen to these podcasts on Spotify, you can go onto the podcast, click the 3 dots at the top and go rate this show. That will then help this podcast get shared to more people from around the world. But as always, a huge thank you to the wonderful patrons of this podcast, Sherry Brenton, Anthony Howe, Steve McDermott and Roy Barnes, for your continued support. If you do want to be a podcast where you can get some extra juicy content and free trainings as well, head to the link in the show notes and you can join for as little as £1 a month and you can get some extra awesome content. As always, thank you for listening to this episode. Take some responsibility this year. Remember, the only 3 responses that you have any control over is your thoughts, your visual images that you have in your head, or the stories you tell yourself, and your behavior. Take some responsibility for your life today. Goodbye.